Hey, what's up guys, TechTime here, and this is gonna be my experience with the 2024 Moto G 5G 48 hours later. But before I begin, I want to thank you all so much for watching. If you enjoy my content, make sure you leave a thumbs up. If you're new around here, you haven't subscribed, consider doing so. A lot of great content is coming really soon. And if you want to see my unboxing and first impressions, they will be linked in the description below. But basically, after a couple of days using this phone, I have kind of a new idea of who this phone is really targeted for. So obviously the biggest pro that this phone has, in my opinion, has to be the design itself. So this design is different from previous Motorola generations, and it actually is very similar to the Motorola Razr that I did a couple of videos on. Again, if you want to see them, just dig into my channel, you'll find them there. But basically, this time around, the Moto G 5G uses this kind of fake leather material that actually provides a really good grip with the phone, and it actually gives it a nice look and feel. So this here has a green color, which looks really nice. Like I said, it feels really good in the hand, very grippy. So a case is not really highly recommended unless you want to protect these plastic sides. And if you actually notice on the back of the phone, you have, well, first your dual camera setup. This kind of fake leather material kind of wraps all around the back of the phone, so it blends in beautifully and gives this camera a kind of a flush look. So thumbs up for Motorola for doing that. And we will definitely have a conversation about the camera later on. But as far as your bottom port selection goes, you have the following. You have a headphone jack that still exists in 2024. You have a microphone as well as a USB-C port that supports up to 18 watt of fast charging, which is a faster charging rate speed than previous generation. So also on the bottom you have your loud speaker, which we will definitely get to listen to later on in the video. And on the side of the phone you have your power button / fingerprint sensor, as well as your volume up and down. Now these buttons are okay, obviously they are made out of plastic, but they get a pass because at the end of the day this is a $170 device. However, they are decently clicky. The fingerprint sensor on the power button works fairly well. I don't know how it's gonna do when the power button is all scratched up, so if you want to protect the power button, you do need a case on the sides of the phone. Not on the back, but you do need it on the side. Overall though, as a design, it's definitely a much improved look and feel from previous generation. Here's where things can get kind of disappointing, which is the display. So 48 hours later, I have a couple of new thoughts that I have about the display. Real quick, but so this is going to be a 6.6 inch 720p panel that has decent features. When I say decent features, I mean that it does support up to 120 Hz of refresh rate that you can control in the settings. Now, obviously the refresh rate is nice and all, but I wish that the resolution matched it. This is an IPS panel, so it's not an OLED panel, which is fine. I don't really have a problem with the IPS panel on a device at this price point. What I do have a problem with is the resolution itself, especially when this phone needs to be competing with the Galaxy A15 that has a 1080p OLED 120 Hz refresh rate. So that's a lot to compete with. And you can peep pixels even if you have the phone close by. So the other thing that I want to discuss as far as the display goes is actually the outdoor viewing condition. So this display does not really get all that bright, which is a little bit disappointing. However though, when it comes to watching videos, watching your content, it's okay at best. Right, I want to give it a pass because this is a $170 phone, and I would have gave it a pass if there was no competition, but unfortunately for Motorola, there's a lot of competition. All right, the teardrop front-facing camera is there. It may bother some people. Some people may forget about it, but as far as watching videos, you know, browsing the web, doing your social media, this display will serve its purpose. It's not the best out there. The speaker, on the other hand, is really good. So it's way better than any phone at this price point, period. It's way better than the Galaxy A15 because it uses the bottom-facing speaker as well as kind of the top microphone to act as like a subwoofer, which gives this kind of a stereo sound. So here, take a listen. Photo lens without giving you an actual telephoto lens. All right. So next in the conversation is going to be the performance and the battery life, and I can safely say that the battery life on this phone is nothing short of excellent. Now again, it doesn't really support fast charging, at least not as fast as like 30, 40, 50 or crazy 60 watts that we see in Android phones, but it still supports like a 18 watt charging speeds, which It's whatever, to be honest with you. I mean, if the battery life is really good, then I don't really have a problem with how fast or how slow the phone charges, in my opinion. And you also get the upgraded chips from the 14 plus. So obviously this is definitely going to be the speaker to beat on phones under a $200 price point. So at least the disappointing display can be somewhat made up with this good speaker. Don't get me wrong, the display is still, I don't know, I'm still a little bit salty about it. So next in the conversation is definitely going to be the camera on this phone, or the dual camera setup. So Motorola here gave us a dual camera setup with the main sensor being a 50 megapixel at f1.8 aperture, and you also get a low resolution 2 megapixel macro sensor. You're going to see how bad the macro sensor is because of its low resolution. However, I do, like I said, have to appreciate how clean the camera looks on this phone as far as design aspect. And the camera app itself, the way you launch it, obviously you have to do the double twist. That's a given when you have a Motorola phone. And the tap to focus is quick. Taking pictures is extremely quick. The macro sensor, the transitioning between the main sensor and the macro sensor is also quick and flawless, so thumbs up for that. I just wish we had a wide angle sensor instead of that pathetic macro sensor. You do have the ability to shoot up to 1080p video, no 60 frames, only maxes out at 30 frames. As far as image quality goes, this is where things will take a downhill. So this camera is plenty sharp, however, the colors on it look a little artificial. Indoor photography, not the best. And even if you compare this phone with something like the iPhone 12, which I know is ridiculous, but bear with me. So when you do that, you kind of see that the iPhone 12 has more detail. It provides, it just overall much better picture, and obviously it's going to be the better phone to take pictures with. But that's not like, I'm not like trying to compare it to iPhones or the higher end devices. I'm just giving you an idea of how this phone stacks up when looking at higher end devices. Okay, so basically that's the small story behind the camera. I am currently working on a full camera review, so stay tuned for that. But the macro sensor, back to it again, is just because of its slow resolution, the pictures on it look grainy, they don't look that sharp, it lacks a lot of detail. It gives you macro shots, but it lacks everything else basically. So yeah, that's the story behind the camera so far. I am going to be putting more tests towards it, taking more videos, taking more pictures, selfies, things like that. So stay tuned for the full camera review. Next in the conversation is the performance and specs. So as far as your spec sheet goes, here's the list. So you get the Qualcomm Snapdragon 4 Gen 1 processor, and it is 2 GHz octa-core chip with the GPU of choice being the Adreno GPU. 128GB of built-in storage, nice, a definite upgrade from the 64 from previous generation, and a big flex of 8GB of RAM. And of course you get a nicely sized 5000 milliamp hour battery. And let me tell you something, when it comes to the daily tasks, this phone performs like a boss, like a champ. And to me, it seemed a little bit faster than the Galaxy A15. And I feel like a comparison needs to happen sooner than later. Trust me, it will happen. As far as my benchmark scores, you get a single core of 849 and a multi-core of 1976, slightly higher than again the Galaxy A15. As far as gaming and things like that, it's okay, it lags from time to time after a certain amount of time playing 3D gaming, but generally it does fairly well. As far as the 8GB of RAM goes, I found it to be working the best when it comes to multitasking. Battery life on this phone is nothing short of excellent, especially since the display is low resolution, and this will be the only time I will be complimenting the display on, is that it helps with battery life. As far as everything else go, as far as my conclusion 48 hours later, this phone will definitely be tough to sell just because it lacks a good display. Really, it does. The camera, it's okay. I feel like the Galaxy A15 has more to offer than in the camera department, but if I were reviewing it in a vacuum, $170. The best thing about this phone is its design. The worst thing has to be the display. The speaker, excellent. Battery life, excellent. Performance, better than others at the same price bracket. I actually want to mention that features that you can only find on Motorola phones, such as the chop to turn on the flash, the double twist to turn on the camera, and these are features that I feel like just make this phone better in my opinion. I like these features. I use them. They're fun. They're good. Yeah, so with that being said, I want to hear your guys' thoughts. Tell me what you think of the Moto G 5G 2024 model. If you have the 2023 model, would you be upgrading, or would you feel like, nah, The design is cool and all, but it's not necessary for me to upgrade. So let me know in the comments below. I want to hear you guys' thoughts. With that being said, I want to thank you all so much for watching. I really appreciate all your guys' support. It really means a lot to me, and I will definitely catch you guys in the next one. We're out.